We're here at the 2017 NCAA convention, and we are going to discuss unique value proposition and positioning your athletic department and its brand in a very competitive college athletics market. I'm here with Tom Michael from Eastern Illinois University and Ryan Ivey from Austin Peay. And to get started, you guys are both in the same league, and the universities in the league have very similar profiles, a lot of public state institutions. So a lot of universities and a lot of athletic departments, when asked what their strategic objective is, they often say it's to graduate student athletes. It's to win as many games as we can. Well, the reality is that every athletic department has those same strategic objectives. The real question is, what is your university, what is your athletic department doing specifically to drive its behavior? What is the mission of your athletics department that may be a little bit different than, say, his mission or somebody else on the college athletics level that you're participating on?
Sure. So for us, our vision that we talk about on a daily basis is to be the premier athletics department within the Ohio Valley Conference. And when we talk about that, it's about everything that we do. It's not just about winning championships. That's a component of it, but it's what we're doing from a branding standpoint. It's what we're doing from a social media standpoint, and what we're doing from an academic standpoint, what we're doing from a community service standpoint. So looking at everything that encompasses an athletics department, and our vision is how can we achieve to become the premier athletics department within the Ohio Valley Conference. And so for us, it starts with our people. I mean, that's really where it starts with, and what we're trying to do, and the culture that we're trying to build surrounding that.
I don't know that in the big picture perspective that we're a lot different than what Ryan is trying to do at Austin Peay. I think what we really try to make sure that we emphasize with our coaches and our staff is how do we continue to enhance that student athlete experience? What can we do to make sure that those 4 or 5 years that student athlete is at Eastern Illinois, that we can put them in the best position possible so that they can be successful as soon as they leave the institution. When we talk to our recruits and prospective student athletes and their parents when they come to campus, one, we feel like it's very important for them to know and understand that we have a responsibility to make them better than what we got them. And the other piece to that is to make sure that, again, going back to the success part, is what can we do for them to have experiences while they're a student athlete, both athletically, academically, and socially, that are going to prepare them to make better decisions when they leave.
So the key to having a unique value proposition is the creation of exceptional value, right? Doing something that is inherently different than, say, your competitors. Have you ever looked at, say, his program, or you looked at his program and said, what are they doing and what can we do that's maybe inherently different, even though we may be trying to accomplish the same mission?
Yeah, I think, from what we do on a daily basis, and we certainly look at our conference peers, and then we also look at aspirational peers, all right? What are they doing that we need to be doing that we're not doing, but what are they doing that we don't need to be doing, and how can we differentiate ourselves within the marketplace, but also from a recruit standpoint? What are we doing from a donor management standpoint? I think when you look at the Ohio Valley Conference as a whole, there are a lot of similar institutions. It's a lot of similar towns. Okay, for us at Austin Peay, the unique aspect that we have is we have Fort Campbell right in our backyard, and so we are starting a strategic focus on how we can integrate ourselves within Fort Campbell in the 101st Airborne Division. And we've already started some leadership opportunities with them. We've been on campus. We've been on their campus. They've been on our campus. We've got different units and brigades from the Army that are adopting our teams. So we've got a brigade that's adopting our basketball team, men's basketball team, one that's adopted our women's basketball team, and they're coming to games and they're supporting each other and being there and part of that. So that's something that's unique from a community standpoint for us that I don't know that Tom has that opportunity just because it's in our backyard. So we're trying to leverage that opportunity to really get them involved moving forward.
Do you have something similar that you do?
Well, we certainly don't have Fort Campbell
Right.
in our backyard, but I think to your question in terms of, and what Ryan mentioned about the Ohio Valley is the piece that is really, I think, positive about what we do is the collegial atmosphere that we all have. As competitive as we all are, and Austin Peay came in on Saturday, men's basketball, and beat us on Saturday, and it's no fun to lose and whatever the case might be. But know that, I can have a conversation with Ryan in terms of how are you doing this, what's taking place, whatever that might be, and know that we're going to be able to have that conversation to where it's not competitive in that regard. That's probably as positive as a piece when we get together to look at, to say, hey, this institution is doing this well. How do you get that accomplished? And from a financial standpoint, we're all at different places in a lot of different areas. So some things are possible, some things aren't, and how do you get creative to get that done? But just the sharing and the interaction that we have, I think is positive as anything that we have going on.
Yeah, and I will echo that. I think when you look at our conference as a whole, we really try to focus on helping each other, because I think the athletic directors as a whole, and really our conference, every unit from coaches on down, feel like if Eastern Illinois is succeeding doing something well, then that's going to benefit Austin Peay and vice versa. And so we're always looking to help one another, but at the same time competing with one another as well.
So how did you come to, say this Fort Campbell initiative, how did you come to that realization? Did you speak to the university? Did you bring in constituents? Did you talk to donors? Where did that come from?
Yeah, for us, it's certainly a university priority to try to get Fort Campbell. We have a campus on base at Fort Campbell, so we're trying to get students involved that way. There's some selfish motivation behind it, obviously, because if we get them involved from an athletics department standpoint, then our attendance is going to increase, revenues are going to increase, so there's some selfish motivation to that. But I'll be honest with you, our community at Clarksville, it's 160,000, and probably 60% of it is military connected somehow, whether they're they're veterans or they're civilians that work on base or whatever it may be. So to me, it's in our best interest to figure out how to partner with them. And I think the Army has taken an initiative to try to connect with the communities that those bases are in, and the public in general, so that they can educate people on what the Army's trying to do as well. And so we feel like it's a great partnership. One of the things that General Brower and I have talked about a lot is, they have a lot of 18 to 22-year-olds. They're coming in. They're coming in on a 2-year rotation and coming in and out. And so they're facing a lot of the same problems that we're facing from an athletics department standpoint. And we're having to try to figure out how to motivate those 18 to 22-year-olds. It's just a different generation. How do you motivate them? How do you connect with them? And then how do you deal with the turnover? How do you deal with a new crop coming in? And same way with our student athletes. We've got student athletes that are graduating. We've got new freshmen coming in every year. So how are we doing that, and really how are we dealing with them and positioning them to be successful later on? So we've taken it from a leadership approach and what we're trying to do from that standpoint, and I think we've had some benefit both ways.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned seeing the comparison between higher education, college athletics, and the military. And sometimes I think we all live in our own little bubble, right, not realizing that sometimes there's a lot of alignment. And so expanding our horizons and looking at things that maybe we wouldn't, all of a sudden helps us run our departments. How about you? Have you reached out to the constituents, to the local community, and started saying, how do we build our brand in a way that may be a little bit different than everyone else's?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that everyone on every college campus is trying to find ways to enhance their brand, their product, the influence that they can have in their communities and the surrounding areas. Ryan has a unique opportunity, obviously, in Clarksville with Fort Campbell. But at the same time, it's whether you have an Army base right there, or it's just your local constituents that you need to continue to try to get them to support, buy in, and value what you bring to the communities, what you bring to the institution as an athletic department. Those are all challenges that we face. It continues. How do you continue to get people to come to events, get people in the stands? That's becoming more difficult and more challenging. And if you sit back and expect them just to come to you, it's not going to happen. And so you've got to be proactive. You've got to get out in the communities. You've got to get out to the schools. We're really a rural college campus. And so our circle is much, much bigger. We don't have 150,000 folks right in Charleston, the Mattoon area. So how do we reach out to those folks with a bigger circle and cast a bigger net, and trying to make sure that they understand the value that we're putting out there with our student athletes and what we're trying to get them to accomplish in the classroom and in the community.
Sure. So let's shift focus, but kind of stay in the same topic area. You've kind of identified your unique value propositions. You know what your brand is all about. How do you go about identifying people that you're going to staff your departments with that fit that goal? And we're not talking just about culture, but I have a strategic initiative I want to execute, and now I need to go hire somebody. Are you, now that you're working maybe more with Fort Campbell in the military, are you more inclined to potentially hire somebody that has the military background?
I tell you what, yeah, I mean, absolutely. We look at, I mean, how are they connected to the military? Do they have any experience at all? I mean, is their family connected, anything? Because I think when you look at Clarksville as a whole, and with Fort Campbell being right there, you have to understand that aspect of it. That was the one thing that I really didn't have a lot of experience in beforehand, was dealing with the military. And so I've kind of learned on the fly here, and I've learned the military has some unique ways of doing things, and if you can try to penetrate those areas and get somebody that understands that and can get to the right people, then I think you can have some productive conversations. So it certainly helps. It's not the only criteria that we certainly look for when we hire people, but really looking for a fit, and for us that military component is a fit to it.
What about you?
Yeah, I think that as you try to build your staff, when there is turnover, and I think that institutions our size, typically there is a bit more turnover with that. And so when that does occur, trying to find the people that fit best, whether it's a military background or whether it's understanding what a rural campus community is really like. We're an hour and 45 minutes from Indianapolis, 2 hours from St. Louis, a little over 3 hours from Chicago. We're not that far away from the bigger cities, but also understanding, hey, we're a college campus that's 20,000 in Charleston. So making sure that they understand that there is some differences with that. We also think there's tremendous pluses, obviously, in those situations, and making sure that we find people that really fit and buy into and embrace that.
Sure. So you bring up an interesting point. I think one of the most difficult aspects of strategic execution is getting everyone pointed in the right direction and getting moving in the right direction. And of course, when you're a small school or any organization, employee turnover can stop strategic execution right in its tracks, because you have to bring a new person in, you have to train them in what you're trying to do and get them aligned, and then by the time that happens, someone else leaves, and it's just this constant cycle. What have you guys done to try to retain talent and keep people focused and keep the organization moving in the direction that you want to move it in?
Well, for us, I don't think try to fight that piece. My hope is that we're hiring good people, and that turnover is part of the process. If I've always said that it's much easier to hire people because folks have made the decision to leave on their own to where they think might be a better opportunity, as opposed to us having to make that decision for them and then trying to. Typically, then it's not in good situation. So, you do need continuity. You do try to get people to commit, but at the same time, if they're doing a good job, we know that they're going to get opportunities. So, trying to make sure that there's a foundation in place, that you're solid in what your philosophy is, so that when that turnover takes place, you're putting people in there that still can carry on that foundation and philosophy without changing everything in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, that's one of the things that I try to embrace is that, hey, if you come here to Austin Peay, that I understand that this may not be your, the capstone of your career. You've probably got other things going on, things that you want to do. So what can I do to help you get there? And what I've found is that when I take that approach, that these people are going to work harder, they're going to work much better, they're going to work much more collaborative because they want to achieve. And if we can get them to achieve and strive for those goals, then we're going to be better off because of it. If I take the approach that, hey, you can't talk to anybody or you can't go out and really try to hamstring them on that aspect of it, they're going to leave anyway, but really the productivity is going to be down in that aspect. So I really try to embrace it and say, hey, look, I get it. This is a stepping stone in your career, but while you're here, what can we do to help you get to that point? And then sometimes it works in your favor because at the end of the day, it's not so much about where you work as it is about who you work with. And if you really like the people that you work with and there's a culture that you really bought into, then sometimes that extra $10,000 or whatever it may be, it's really not worth it because I don't know what I'm getting into. It's really the known entity versus the unknown entity moving forward. So that's the approach that I kind of take with that.
Sure. Well, Ryan, Tom, enlightening discussion. Thank you for joining us today.
You bet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Been great, Jason. Thanks.